And we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Space and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, June 12th, 8 EST, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Cinemasters Reviews live for the first time in about 2 weeks. Wanted to get some people from the land down under over in Australia. Couldn't really do those ones live, but I'm so happy to be with you guys this week again. We only have one movie we are reviewing this week that I checked the schedule, and there was only really one movie going wide, and that is Transformers Rise of the Beast. But joining me to review that movie, he's been on, this is now making his fourth appearance on the show, more than any guest so far, the one, the only, Kirk Kowalkowski. Kirk, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Payson. Thanks for having me. How you doing? I'm
doing great. Kirk, you are one of my favorite people to have on this show. Just to talk about movies in general, I think you always have some fun opinions to discuss on certain things. I got Jake last week for Spider-Verse. You were my second choice for that. If I would have gotten you, that would have been maybe the craziest episode I think I've ever had.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Would have been fun.
Mm-hmm. But we are not reviewing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That was last week. This week we are reviewing Transformers Rise of the Beasts. This is the 7th live-action Transformers movie and the 8th Transformers movie overall. Probably the 6th one, the second one in this new sort of universe since Bumblebee kind of rebooted everything. Of course, the first 5 live-action ones were done by Michael Bay. They even kind of had their own little reboot in the 4th one with a new cast going from Shia LaBeouf to Mark Wahlberg. Bumblebee, of course, came out in 2018. That one sort of took it in a new direction, went back to a new time period. And this one, just like how Bumblebee was set in the 80s, this one is now set in the 90s. We learned long ago there was a race of Transformers called the Maximals, and they were responsible for holding off one of the big Transformers threat known as Unicron. And Unicron is now coming down to Earth, and it is up to the Autobots to once again protect Earth. This time with help of their token human, this time known as Noah Diaz, played by Anthony Ramos. Kirk, if I could ask you, what have been your thoughts on... I'm not going to ask you for your whole thoughts on every single live-action Transformers movie. Let's go with the Bay films as a whole, and then let's go with Bumblebee. What were your thoughts on those movies?
Sure. It's funny because I went and saw this with my friend last night, and he and I were talking about it. The first Transformers movie, when I saw it in theaters, I was really taken aback by it, just because as somebody who grew up watching Transformers, going back to Generation 1, I was really excited to see that on the big screen, like translated anyway, and I was really pumped when I saw the first one for the first time on big screen. Got it on home video, got it on DVD. A few months later, rewatched it. It wasn't so great, but it was still okay. Watched the second one, and I'll just say after the second one, I kind of tapped out. I've seen bits and pieces of all the rest, but the first and second ones are the only ones out of the original Bay ones that I've seen completely through. I'm kind of lost interest after that from everything I've heard. Probably made the right decision. But yeah, Bumblebee, I think, was the one that really brought me back. I think Bumblebee really did a good job of capturing the spirit of the older movies, or the older cartoon and the older movie from the 80s more than any of those other movies did. So I think that was definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you, I think with that first Transformers movie, to me, that is a movie that does the bare minimum and passes. That is the best thing I can say about this movie. You did the bare minimum job, and you passed. You're not a bad movie. Because of that, I can't call you a very good movie, but you got the job done. That is what that movie does for me. It's just cheap. It is the good type of cheap done fun. Mm-hmm. All the others are bad to awful. I think the second and the fourth ones are some of the worst movies I think I've ever seen in theaters in general. Actually, did I see the second one in theaters? I saw the fourth one because I was like when I was just seeing everything. But I definitely know I've seen the second one just on TV, and same thing with like the third one. And the fifth one's awful as well. But yeah, like you said, Bumblebee definitely took this series in a new direction. I think Travis Knight really knew how to tackle those like 80s nostalgia points, which can oftentimes get very annoying. But I think he really threaded the needle. I think the character of Charlie, played by Haley Steinfeld, was easily the best main human character we've seen in these movies thus far. And going into this movie, seeing that they were going to be tackling another era, this time with the 90s, and bringing in a new director with Stephen Cable Jr., who did Creed 2, I was just kind of wondering, like, how are we going to do this? And I think the best thing I can say about this movie in general is this is the most I think I have ever cared about the Transformers as actual characters. Kirk, just in general, what were your real quick, like, basic thoughts on Rise of the Beast before we get into the nitty gritty?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. I think it picked up where Bumblebee left off and kind of kept that same feel. I don't think the human characters are strong. I think it was very kind of generic, human, hero's journey kind of story for the human character that they had to, shoehorn in there. The plot was, get the thing, Skybeam, generic plot like that. But the Transformers stuff was fun. I like the new characters that they brought in from the original Transformers stories. I like the brand new the Maximals. I thought they were pretty cool. So that was all fun. Like I said, it was just like a big popcorn action movie. It wasn't something anything that blew my mind, but I had fun in the theater while I was there.
I think watching this movie in general, I think I've just come to the realization that I realize this series has like a lot of like love and respect for certain people, and I don't want to disrespect that. It's a dumb idea in general. Like at the end of the day, at the end of the day, these movies are big, dumb, like big sci-fi things. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as the movies take themselves seriously, and as long as they handle themselves in like a state of class above that, and then let the audience be the ones to kind of like make the jokes about that. And I think that's the best thing with this movie is like you feel the weight of everything going on with the Autobots this time, and with the Terracons this time led by a new villain by the name of Scrooge or Scourge.
Scourge.
Yeah, Scourge. Thank you. Voiced by Peter Dinklage, who does a pretty good job. And yeah, like you said, I really enjoyed the new Maximals. Like my favorite one was Michelle Yeoh, who plays Air Razor, the like bird transformer. I thought she was really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was like one of the most fun parts. I for the first time I think in the series, aside like in those previous ones, I think it was like I could tell who Optimus Prime was, and I could tell who Bumblebee was. In this one, I can tell who a lot more of these characters are, and I think that really helped differentiate certain characters. What did you think about just like? Did you have a favorite like Transformers character as a whole?
Yeah, well, going back to what you're saying about how like it's a dumb idea. That's the one thing I kind of respect about this movie, because I hate when it's you have things like comic book movies or the Ninja Turtles or Transformers where it is a silly idea, and I hate when movies it's like we're going to take the IP and take advantage of the IP, but otherwise we're embarrassed of what this is, and they kind of hide all the silly elements of it. And I think that's what's been great about Bumblebee and this is they like, it's kind of ridiculous. And I mean, especially the Maximals. Maximals is a ridiculous idea. And but they put it on the screen. It looks great. I think they were my favorite personally. I liked seeing RC. She's a character from like I said, Generation 1. She's in the animated movie. This is the first time I think she's been done in live action. And I think she was really well done as far as the original Transformers goes. I think Mirage was really good. Pete Davidson, I think his voice work was like he wasn't too over the top or annoying. I think he played the character really well. But I also liked Ron Perlman as Optimus Primal, the leader of the Maximals. I think he did a really good job I mean, I think you tell Peter Cullen's getting up there in age and he's still doing the voice, but you hear it kind of shaky. I think Ron Perlman brings that like full like gravitas to the character, and I just love the way the Maxwells looked. That combination of like machine and mammal, like living tissue and fur and feathers and things like that. I thought that looked really cool, and like just the close-ups, the way their faces moved, the way they made expressions. I thought all the detail there was really neat and really well done.
Yeah, I remember when Mirage first shows up, and I didn't know Pete Davidson was the voice. The second he started talking, I was like, oh, this is Pete Davidson. Am I going to be able to do this? And I was. And I think it's because I liked Mirage as a character as a whole. I think the movie does a really great job at sort of building him as sort of like this like mess up, screw up kind of Transformers, that like he's assigned to these important things, but like Optimus never really trusts him. I also kind of like that Optimus is kind of a dick in this movie, and like you said, like Peter Cullen's voice, it honestly kind of reminded me of like James Earl Jones in Rogue One, where like, yeah, it's still James Earl Jones, but you can very clearly tell he's starting to struggle a little, and you can definitely tell like Peter Cullen is the voice of Optimus Prime, but it's starting to wane a little. But like, and I kind of liked that it played off how like old and tethered he is by having him be so mad at Mirage, just this guy who just wants to slap across the head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought Mirage was a really fun character. I love RC's design. Like I knew nothing about that character. That character has easily the best design in the entire movie. Like she has just like this slick, cool, the color choice, the pink and white, I think is really awesome. And yeah, Ron Perlman as Optimal Prime is just yeah, I thought his scenes where he's playing off of Optimus Prime is something of like, this is something I should be normally laughing at, or if Michael Bay tried to do this, I'd be rolling my eyes. But I'm not, because just because Stephen Cable Jr. is able to add that heart, and I really, really love that about those characters. Now, you kind of alluded to it, and the reason I can't say I really love this movie is because, once again, I get you have to have. You know what? No, I'm not going to give this movie the break I was going to cut it. The human characters just aren't interesting. Like okay, like it's a step above Sam Witwicky with Shia LaBeouf, where I don't want to punch my movie screen, but every time they come on, I'm just like, okay, here we go. Like Anthony Ramos is doing the best he can with nothing. He plays a character who's like an ex-military guy who's just trying to support his family. And I'll say probably the most I cared about him are the scenes with his brother. Like, and just usually because that stuff kind of gets me. He has no chemistry with Dominic Fishback, the woman who plays Elena, who like, there's gonna be something. They're probably gonna fall in love, and like they have their little like meet cute. He's trying to steal something from her, and I thought that was kind of stupid. Kirk, what did you think about the human characters in general?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, super generic storyline. I mean, there's a point in the first Anthony Ramos's first scenes where somebody says to him, "You don't know how to work with a team." And I'm like, oh, I wonder what his character arc's going to be. It's like, so it's just so spelled out and cut and dry. And like I said, it's just very paint by numbers. Like, okay, we have to have a human character. So, there's a human face for people to look at and don't get overwhelmed by the special effects. But he's really, and again, I mean, like, it's cute. Like, I mean, there's some moments between him and Mirage and his brother that are cute. But overall, like you said, when the humans are on the screen, I'm just like trying to hit the fast forward button, get back to the robots, please.
Yeah, and like towards the end of this movie, like I'd say the character of Noah is more involved than other humans would be in a final battle, and like they're able to make me care a little bit about that. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I kind of wish we could just be watching like Mirage, like take on Scourge. Like I kind of wish the movie like would realize like what we kind of care about, and I understand why you need the human character, because at the end of the day, that allows us to connect to this world. And at the end of the day, Bumblebee had really great human characters with Haley Steinfeld. John Cena was he felt like he belonged in the Michael Bay universe.
Yes,
but Haley Steinfeld is easily the best one we've had so far, and this one just felt like okay. I'll give them credit. They're not like annoying, but there's nothing that special.
Yeah, they were serviceable. I mean, like it wasn't like I was like this is terrible and I hate it, but I was not like connected to their story or they weren't characters that I was really like rooting for, like other than what they were trying to do to help Transformers. Like I didn't care about their story, and even if you did care, you knew exactly where it was going. Like it was like that. And that's what made it hard to care, I guess, was that there was no like mystery or anything. Like, oh, is he going to make it? Is this going to happen? Like you knew, like it was painted. That you saw the road markers 50 miles ahead of you.
Yeah, you've seen this plot before. We're about to get a little existential here, but like we're starting to see the like fears of like, are movies going to be written by AI in the future? I really hope they aren't, but unfortunately, I do sometimes see certain movies where I'm like, you could tell me this was written by AI, and I wouldn't be surprised. And the way how this movie does a basic plot, just the basic narrative structure, it definitely feels like that. If I could just say one more thing on this character before we move on, the first time he is like introduced to like the world of the Transformers, like I kind of wish certain filmmakers would realize, like, I don't care how many times we have seen that, to that human character, that should be like the biggest moment of their life. Because like, how is this happening? And Anthony Ramos just kind of plays it off like, whoa, what is happening? Like, it's like there is a talking robot that just transformed into a car. This should be the biggest deal in the world. Like, you should not be believing what you are seeing right now.
Yeah, they handle it a little too well. Especially him. I mean, and again, it's they kind of introduce it in a situation where he's already kind of under stress, I guess, and maybe that might be the reason why. But yeah, there's never an appropriate reaction. I mean, I guess to be fair, I think Shia might have had appropriate reactions to these things, but since then, everybody kind of takes it way too much in stride.
It's so funny. I say I want that reaction like Shia does, but at the same time, then I just remember, like, do I want the constant no? And I'm like, okay, so maybe if we can find like a nice balance between the two, that would be the perfect circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Something that Michael Bay got a lot of credit with those live action Transformers movies that I kind of push back a lot on is, I know a lot of people really loved the action of those movies. I'll be honest, I kind of can't stand how the action of that movie is filmed, especially later down the line. I described it on Letterboxd. I described it as cluttered metal sex, where you're literally just watching like CGI metal just clash up against each other. And I can't tell, like, in those movies, the first one is a little better, like, than the other ones. That one, there's still a little bit of effort to like kind of differentiate everything. But like by Revenge of the Fallen, when you're looking at like the most ugly desert palette, and then by Age of Extinction, just the aspect ratio is literally changing. Like, I just hate that, and I think that is what Rise of the Beast does really, really well. Is one, the action is filmed in a really great way where you are able to see everything that is actually going on, and two, the fact that all these characters do have unique designs, so you are still invested in certain things, and you know who is fighting who. What did you think about the action in this movie compared to the action in the last movie?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, like you said, like just this movie has some color to it, has some life to it. That you can differentiate the different characters based on just, whether it's a color scheme or a shape or size. Everything looked the same. Like you said, it was Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, and then everybody else in those earlier movies. And you never knew, and it's moving fast, stuff's blowing up, and you don't know. Everybody does the same thing. Like nobody has different powers. This one, I think everybody had kind of, and I like especially some of the Maximals. I wish they would have established those characters, like the Rhinoceros and Leopard. I wish they would have established what they did a little more before the big fight started. But still, even within the fight, like it's obvious who they are, what they're doing, and you do have that big action movie CGI problem where you kind of lose track of where you are and where everybody else is related to each other. But still, you have those moments where it's okay, this character is doing this, and there's emotional beats in there too. It's set up where you actually kind of like there's a reason, like they're not just punching up everybody's, like there's a reason why this person's attacking that person and this person's defending that person. So I think that's I think that's a huge improvement over the original movies.
Yeah, there are two major instances in this movie where you kind of say goodbye to one of the major like good guy Transformers. One of them, it doesn't really register as much because I think you kind of know what's going to happen there. But the other time when it happens, I was legit like, okay, this movie has done a good job at making me care for this creature, for this robot, for the limited time I've had. And I think that's because of just from the direction and from the writing. It just feels like more heart was put into this movie than you would see in the previous movies. Maybe the like talent and the quality wasn't quite there to do it, but I think the effort honestly does go a long way. With this movie being in the 90s, like most other movies that are set in either the 80s or the 90s, it has to remind you that it is set in the 80s and 90s. And the way how it does that is by adding as much songs from that period as possible. Now, this movie definitely has a certain sound to it, and I think the choice of just being like, look, we're just going to be using 90s rap, I think was a unique choice. But I'll be honest, but I'd be lying if I said at a point I was like, okay, another needle drop. What did you think about those, Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of par for the course at this point, like you said. Like if you know you have a 80s or 90s period piece, you're just going to get like an orgy of evidence that you're in that decade.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, it was. I mean, again, I'm nostalgic for a lot of that music because I grew up with a lot of it. So there were some instances where, like during the break-in scene, the heist scene at the beginning, I think that was some good music. And then the big, like you referring to, the big return scene at the end, I think it was kind of on the nose, but still I thought it was fun. It was fun for this.
I would be lying
in Star Trek Into Darkness.
I would be lying if that last like major needle drop happened, if I wasn't just pumping my fists. Like it was one of the biggest like crowd reactions I think I've seen in a while. Kirk, I think you might be cutting out just a little. So if you want to reload, I'll just carry this just for a little while longer. Yeah, I just wanted to give you the heads up on that. But yeah, like if you saw Air, I think Air has some really good needle drops, but I think at a point you do start to kind of get a little bored by those. I think this movie kind of has that same same issue. Kirk, I was sort of mentioning how Air was a movie, which is a movie I really, really do like, and I think it does have some great music moments. But I think there were some points in that movie where even I was like, okay, we can turn the record player off for just a second.
We know where we're at time frame wise. You don't have to keep reminding us constantly. And again, I mean, it could be used for good or bad, just like in any other movie. I think Air did it well some points, and some points it was just too much. But I think they do overdo it. I think I feel like everybody brings, like, they have like a meeting. It's like, what are all the songs you want to make? Everybody make a list of the songs you want to use. And they get those lists together, and they don't reject anything. And I think they need to be a little more judicious in the way they use those soundtracks. But they can, if done right, it works and it's fun, but it does get tedious.
A recent movie I think honestly does that really, really well. Came out 3 years ago. I think Da 5 Bloods, having doing the music from Vietnam, but doing like Marvin Gaye and just the stuff that you would imagine like black soldiers would be listening to. I think that was like one of the best examples of that, of just capturing a time period with a soundtrack.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so before the last major thing I kind of want to talk about. Nikki Johnson says, Rafie and Barney is what I associate with 90s music. How about you? I might be showing my age here. I don't really know that act. Kirk, I'm not sure if you can speak upon that. You're a good 5 years older than me, so maybe you can.
Are we referring to Barney the Purple Dinosaur? Is that what we're talking about?
Oh, okay. That's what we're doing, Mom. Okay, yes. Yeah, one of the last things I kind of want to talk about. We here on Cinemaster's Reviews, we try to keep this show fairly spoiler-free. I'm going to break my rule one time, because I think we kind of need to talk about that last scene. We're going to try to keep this as short as we can. I have a spoiler alert tag. I will take it off screen when we are done talking spoilers. 3, 2, one. Maybe it's just like my age, but when we learn, oh, G.I. Joe crossover, I was like, I feel like we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot because I think we're kind of on a good track record with Bumblebee in this. Mm-hmm. What did you think about that, Kirk?
Well, I mean, this something's been teased for a long time, and they've done it in the comics, and it's been done well in the comics. Some really fun comic books have come out of this. They even teased it in the old 80s cartoon where Cobra Commander showed up in one episode of Transformers, and then just nothing ever came of it. But I think if it's done well, what they can't do is bring in the Rock and those movies. They can't bring in that version. They kind of have to, like they did with Bumblebee, reboot G.I. Joe. And I mean, ideally there'll be a G.I. Joe movie, and they'll do like we were talking about, instead of being like, oh, they're just army guys, and we're going to take all the fun, cool stuff out of it. Just go crazy with it. Just make them as silly and weird as they were in the comic or in the cartoon. And then I think if you take that world and combine it with this current Transformers world, it could be good. I mean, it probably won't, but I mean, as somebody who grew up with both these things, I was more into G.I. Joe than I was Transformers when I was a kid. And I've always wanted to see a good live action G.I. Joe. So if they could pull it off and bring these two things together, because the worlds, if you do G.I. Joe right, the worlds aren't that different. Like the G.I. Joe existing in the world of Transformers and vice versa makes sense if you get them the tone right and the style right and everything and the story right. I think there's potential there.
Okay, you definitely sold me on it a little better. I was just thinking, like, I just don't need to see like the Channing Tatum and The Rock come into this world. But like you said, they are probably going to try to reboot the G.I. Joe, which I will give them full credit. I like to give movies generally a fresh start, and I always try to hope for the best. So with, like you said, it probably won't be good, but you definitely give me a little bit more hope. I'll give that cliffhanger this. It's not the worst cliffhanger I've seen in movies this year. Did you see Fast X?
I have not, but I heard about it. I think that's spoiled for me. So
one of the most cynical, like, money grabbing endings I think I've ever seen in my life. Not as bad as that. All right, so that does end the spoiler talk. Kirk, is there any final points you want to bring up before we head into our ratings?
No, like I said, I think it was, if you liked Bumblebee, you'll like this. If you didn't like the other Transformers movies, you still might like this. It's a step. I think they're continuing. It's not perfect, but it's continuing to step in the right direction with these characters and with these stories. So again, it's a very generic, actiony, get the thing, get the other thing kind of movie. But it's a fun ride along the way. You got cool robots punching each other and shooting lasers at each other. So it's a good time. I didn't love it, but I definitely wouldn't recommend anybody not see it.
I think we that sounds like those are excellent final thoughts, Kirk. I say we move right into final ratings. We review movies on a scale of 0 to 10. Kirk, you've been here before, you already know. 0, awful movie. 10, incredible movie. If you were to rank this on a scale of 0 to 10, what would you give it?
I think I'd give this a solid 6. Like I said, it had a lot of things going, against it, but also it did a lot of stuff to keep my interest. So I'd say 6 is probably a good number for this.
6, yeah, absolutely decent rating. I think I'm going to go a little higher than you, and I'm going to give it a flat 7. I think this is a good Transformers movie. I think this is probably, honestly, my second favorite aside from Bumblebee. I definitely think it does still have that generic action stuff, but I think the way how it made me care about the actual robots, and I think it having some of my favorite action in the entire series definitely does make it fairly easy for me to recommend. If you do like the Transformers, I would recommend you do go and see this in theaters. If not, and you catch it on TV later down the line, I think you will definitely enjoy yourself with this movie. But yeah, Kirk gives it a 6. I give it a 7. Those are our ratings. We're going to move, because that is our only review, we're going to move into questions and comments. If you want to ask me or Kirk anything, I'm actually going to ask Kirk a question. So I sort of alluded to it earlier. Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen and Transformers: Age of Extinction, two of the worst movies I've ever seen in theaters. Let's have some fun, Kirk. What are some of the you don't have to pick like an ultimate one, but what are like 2 or 3 movies that you would genuinely consider to be the worst movies you've ever seen in theaters?
In theater, the most recent I would say, and it's been a while, but this is the one I still talk about and think about a lot, is My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2.
Oof.
That was rough. That was a one for me, one for you. I took Kathy to see, I think, 10 Cloverfield Lane the week before, so this is her pick the week after. And man, like it just, I understand like the whole concept of the original movie was coming from like independent theater and like just like these amateurs getting together. But and I didn't love the first movie, but they still turned this into a movie, like a real movie.
Yeah.
The second one was like watching amateur theater. Like it was like there was no professional filmmaking involved in this at all. Like the performances, the script, everything just felt so hokey and bad. And it was, again, I don't, and I feel bad because it's like it's about a bunch of likable people that you kind of want to like enjoy watching, but it was just so poorly done. And I would say my other one is, I don't love parody movies. That's like my least favorite form of comedy. My other one would be the first Scary Movie. That was, I went into that kind of blind, and I haven't watched any of those. You could probably tell me the other Scary Movies are worse, or the other movies are worse, but I tapped out after that first one, so I don't want to go any further. How about you?
Scary Movie definitely does not seem like a Kirk movie at all.
Yeah.
I did not see the first Big Fat Greek Wedding, but I didn't see the second one. I heard nothing but awful things about those movies. So what you say doesn't quite surprise me. I think one of the absolute worst movies, and I'm not just going to say like the most angry I've been walking out of a movie. Like I genuinely think probably the worst movie I've ever seen in theaters. I'm not sure if you remember it, but in 2014, in probably the worst period of right when Nicolas Cage was finally about to like come out of bankruptcy, he had to do one more paycheck, and that paycheck was Kirk Cameron was an adaptation of Left Behind. Do you remember this?
I remember him. I haven't seen this one yet. I have seen, but I remember him doing the. Yeah.
It is the only time I think I've ever seen Nicolas Cage not try in a movie. Everyone says their lines like this: "Hi, how are you doing? Yeah, I think I've kind of lost my faith. Yeah, it's okay. What about you? Oh, my faith is really good. In fact, I actually just saved this woman from walking down the street." So it really sets up who's going to be going into the rapture during the movie. And the rapture happens 20 minutes into this movie, and the last hour and 20 minutes is just hoping that a plane can be landed with a pilot who has just been sent up to God. It ends on a stupid cliffhanger, kind of trying to tease a Left Behind 2. Spoiler alert, I don't think we're ever going to get a Left Behind 2. Awfully paced. It just feels cheap. Like just thinking like when you just watch the movie, it just has horrible production. It's just like and I know that's a very famous story. Like I almost called it Kirk Cameron's Left Behind because I know he did an adaptation of that in the 90s. But yeah, it just, man, Nicolas Cage, I'm so happy you no longer are suffering through money issues and you don't have to do movies like that anymore, because that was painful to watch.
I'm gonna we go off the air. I want to recommend some good end times movies for you.
I would
watch some crazy end times movies. I'll get you some recommendations. We go off the air.
I would absolutely love to hear those recommendations, but we are just about to close out tonight's show. Thank you all for joining me and Kirk on tonight's episode of Cinemaster's Review. Short one this week, but I'm very happy to finally be back live. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the video store. We have new content coming out every single day just to share our love for movies. Join me next week for the review of 2 big movies, that being everyone's long-awaited DC movie, The Flash. Let's see how Andy Muschietti and James Gunn in general wrap everything up, as well as the new Pixar film, Elemental. I almost have a guest locked down for The Flash. I'm going to be messaging him later on tonight to see if he's able to come, but it should be a very, very fun episode. But, Kirk, before we head out, is there anything you would like to plug?
No, just keep watching for me on, Video Store, Multiplex, or to have me, and follow me on Letterboxd.
Thank you so much, Kirk. And on behalf of everyone here at the Video Store and Cinemaster's Reviews, I'm Payson Johnson, the Cinemaster. Have a great night.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.